Air travel returning to normal in Mexico after violence erupted in the streets this past weekend when Mexican authorities killed a top cartel boss. ABC's Gio Benitez has some tips on if you're traveling to the region.
If you've already made a trip plan, obviously keep a close eye on the situation. Look at your travel insurance if you bought that, and check the State Department's travel advisory for Americans. Of course, call your airline to ask about any travel waivers.
Shelter-in-place alerts for Americans in Mexico have now been lifted. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announcing its nominees for 2026 with contenders across pop, soul, and hip-hop topping on the ballot for the first time.
I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh, Lord.
Phil Collins, already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Genesis, is now nominated for induction as a solo artist. He's one of 10 first-time nominees this year, along with Pink, INXS, Shakira, Lauryn Hill, Wu-Tang Clan, New Edition, the late Luther Vandross, Melissa Etheridge, and the late Jeff Buckley. Andrea Dresdale, ABC News.
The inductees will be announced in April. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony takes place in the fall. Chip maker NVIDIA announcing record-breaking fourth quarter revenue, up almost 75% from a year ago on surging data center demand and delivering better than expected quarterly and yearly results. Michelle Franzen, ABC.
A small business affirmation from Progressive. Food truck owners, today business will be booming. People will love your new menu and not make special orders. You will not roll your eyes when someone calls it a quesadilla. You will also switch to Progressive to get 30 customizable coverage options and restore your inner peace. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
It's now 4:05, and with your KVNU local headlines as we begin KVNU's For the People show, I'm Will Feelright. Well, a Utah House committee endorsed a plan yesterday to create a Secretary of State office to oversee elections that would strip the duties from the Lieutenant Governor. Now, the House Government Operations Committee approved House Bill 529 and HJR 25. Both are sponsored by Representative Lisa Shepard of Provo. Now, the measures would establish the new position and place a constitutional amendment before the voters later this year. Now, Shepard argued that the current system creates an inherent conflict of interest because the lieutenant governor oversees elections while also running for office. Now, Utah previously had a Secretary of State, but switched to the current model back in the 1970s. Now, while the proposal garnered bipartisan interest, Representative Andrew Stoddard of Midvale voted against it, arguing that such a significant shift would require further study. Now, so far, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson's office has not immediately commented on the legislation. And as the legislature continues its push through this year's session, lawmakers say they have reached a new milestone, filing a record number of bills and resolutions despite a public call for state leaders to exercise more legislative restraint. Now, yesterday, the legislature had introduced over 1,019 measures into the House and Senate chambers. Now, while it is common to see up to 1,300 bill requests, the volume formally introduced legislation has reached unprecedented levels. Now, House Speaker Mike Schultz, though, yesterday suggested that a high volume of the filings this year does not necessarily equate to a high volume of new laws. Schultz told reporters that fewer bills are making it past the House Rules Committee, which acts as a gatekeeper for which items receive a public hearing. Now, he also emphasized focus on vetting rather than volume, predicting that the total number of passed bills will actually decrease this year. And the second day of the Corey Richins murder trial yesterday focused heavily on her husband's blood test results and the illicit fentanyl that was found in his system. Now, Richins, a Utah children's book author, has pleaded not guilty to murdering her husband, Eric Richins, in Summit County back in 2022. Prosecutors allege that she fatally laced his drink with the synthetic opioid. Now, she was arrested nearly a year later in May of 2023. Now, taking the stand yesterday was retired forensic pathologist Dr. Pamela Ulmer, who detailed the medical examiner's findings. Now, Ulmer, who worked for the office during the initial investigation, emphasized the abnormality of the victim's toxicology report. Dr. Ulmer testified that the descendant did not have a history of any kind of illicit drug use or prescription medication abuse, so the fentanyl levels should have been 0. She also added that the drug was obviously ingested at some point. Well, we've had a few raindrops outside the KVNU studios, and we could continue to see a few more as this storm is moving out of the area. Overall, it's brought us over a quarter of an inch of precipitation with snow in the mountains. Now, as we head into tonight, tomorrow, temperatures going to warm up even more, as overnight we'll see temperatures in the low 30s. Tomorrow, looks like we're going to be right around the mid-50s with sunny skies, and that's going to continue into Friday. Another chance of some isolated showers for the first of the weekend and into next week. And Dr. Keith Nelson is who brings you our weather here at the top of the hour. For 27 years now, he's been providing pain relief when it comes to sports injuries, arthritis, and knee pain. Find out what he can do for you. It's Dr. Keith Nilsson. You can visit his website, drkeithnilsonortho.com. That's drkeithnilsonortho.com. And I'm Will Feelright for KVNU News.
Whole Tree Care.
Winter is finally here, and for Whole Tree Care, it's when the smartest work gets done. January and February mean the biggest savings of the year on tree trimming, 40% off. With the leaves gone, it's easier to trim and shape your trees, all while beating the spring rush.
Whole Tree Care.
The only finger you have to lift is to dial the phone number, 760-6587. Whole Tree Care, 760-6587.
Whole Tree Care.
Information and news you need. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
There are moments that shape a lifetime, from first plans to first steps, backyard throws to big wins. And for the biggest decisions, who you choose matters. Where life starts, home begins. Bank of Utah Home Loans. Find out how Bank of Utah can serve you by going to bankofutah.com. Bank of Utah is an equal housing lender, member FDIC, NMLS number 422914.
The Logan Home Show is back. Join us February 27th and 28th at the Cache County Event Center. Save big on all your home improvement projects and meet local remodeling experts. Bring your friends and family to see what's new in home improvement and craft and design. Check out designs and new ideas. Admission and parking are absolutely free. See you this weekend at the Cache Valley Event Center for the Logan Home Show, February 27th and 28th.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Wednesday, February 25th. I'm Jason Williams. 50 degrees here at the Radio Ranch, 4:11 in the afternoon. A lot going on as the legislature enters its last 2 weeks of business. The pace is picking up. The amount of time they're spending discussing and debating bills in the public eye is shrinking. And will really hit a breakneck pace next week as they spend less than, on average, a minute and a half on each bill. There's a lot. When it comes to the legislative session, there are a lot of things that I think are on the surface distasteful for the public. The amount of time they spend on each bill on the House floor, for example, debating before voting A or nay. The number of bills, as you heard during the news break there, report from Will, that another record set for number of bill files opened and bills introduced in this session, despite the very clear sentiment from the public that they'd like to see the legislature slow their roll just a little bit. But it's important to understand that it's an overused word that I think a lot of times when people hear it, it becomes white noise and you stop listening. But the word is process. And I think to understand the legislature, it's important to understand that there is a process because, as the quote from the Speaker of the House in that news story from Will said, there are fewer bills actually surviving the House Rules Committee and Senate Rules Committee as legislation is introduced. That committee is the first to hear most bills and decide which ones move on. And the legislative leadership, House Speaker, Senate President, they get to decide who's on that committee. That's one of the privileges of being in leadership is you get that decision. And they are, looking at the trends this year, they are being far more picky. More bills are dying in that committee before even moving on to take up time in the regular process than I think I've ever seen. So there are rays of hope, we'll put it that way. We'll talk more about this. Legislative leaders weighed in on a number of topics today that have still yet to be decided, including the possibility of an income tax cut, which would be fourth year in a row. The Senate president has all but said it's going to happen, but we haven't seen any details yet. A few emerged today, and it's not good news. I'll spoil it just a little bit. It's also, in the final 2 weeks, a time for a cutoff of sorts, other than emergencies or priority bills that were circled earlier and brought back to life. That it's not against the rules to introduce legislation this late in the game, but it's frowned upon. They prefer you don't do it. So leadership prefers you don't do it. I think we're hitting that point. We'll see, though. Sometimes there are surprises, and usually those are not good things. But legislative update coming up in hour 2. Later on this hour, we're going to speak with the mayor of Nibley about a road. This has been a fascinating saga for me to watch. Admittedly, speaking not as a Nibley resident, this wasn't something that I got, as a resident of Nibley to offer any input on. But it is a road that most people at the south end of the valley might be familiar with. It's where 1200 West meets a roundabout and then heads on through Nibley to Logan. And it's basically become a highway certain times of day, several times a day. It is just a steady line of cars out of Hiram through a school zone, which also lets out in the afternoons and is also pretty packed in the mornings. The school starts for that elementary school there in Nibley on 3200 South. And it literally, though, several times a day is just a highway of cars, one after another, heading through Nibley to Logan. People who work in Hiram but live in Logan. And yet Nibley has had to come up with a solution for all of this traffic, working with the county, of course, and UDOT also kind of involved because 3200 South, of course, connects with 2 UDOT-managed roads. It's been a complex, multi-year ordeal, and it culminated in some traffic calming measures along this stretch of road that weren't popular with the public, with Nibley residents. This is... The city did this on purpose, and I defend them on this because we're going to see more of this. But it maybe was a little much for now. I don't know. We'll talk to the mayor about it and what he heard from the public on this. But the city recently pulled out at least some of the traffic calming measures along this road. There were, by intentional design, there were little cement curbs, basically triangle-shaped at intersections. And the goal of this is basically to slow people down, to make it inconvenient to move fast. The road itself curves quite a bit. That's a traffic calming measure. There is space. You can see this could have just been a straight shot, except for one final curb as it meets the highway there at 10th West. But intentionally, this road kind of snakes a little bit, and there is a cement barricade, and on the other side, a walking and biking path for Nibley residents. That was sort of the trade-off in all this. Okay, there's basically going to be a highway through these residential areas. We know that, but We'll put up a barricade. We'll create a walking path. It's for Nibley residents actually a really nice stretch that connects with a park and a frisbee golf course, and yeah. So I think it was a fair trade-off. But installed were these traffic calming measures that intentionally make it inconvenient to move too quickly on the road. And so this started again a few years ago. The city redesigned all of 1200 West, knowing it as a connection to state routes and highways, and again a protected bike and pedestrian lane. And they put these raised concrete slabs at the intersection that effectively force you to turn very slow and even make wider turns. The problem is it's a narrow road, and residents felt that they were being forced to actually turn into oncoming traffic when they're coming out of the residential areas onto this new, I'm going to call it a highway. It's a 2-lane road through a residential area, but if you've seen the traffic along this is basically a connecting highway. But again, what makes it interesting is that Nibley was kind of forced to come up with a solution here, and I would guess the mayor might have exact numbers, but my guess would be at least 50% of the traffic on this road every day, which gets really concentrated 3 or 4 times a day, is not Nibley traffic. It's traffic coming from Hiram heading into their homes in Logan as they get off work. This isn't a criticism of Hiram. It's an example of what we're going to run into, I think, repeatedly as Cache Valley continues to grow. Again and again, we're going to see situations where decisions and planning in one city directly affect the residents of another city. It's not something we've had to deal with as often as it comes up along the Wasatch Front or in the Salt Lake County area where it's old hat. This is new to Cache County, but it's here to stay. As we grow, as population grows, as traffic grows with it, we are literally going to be dealing with this again and again, and we need to wrap our heads around this, both as residents of the valley, but also our elected leaders. And sometimes you see opposition to any change kind of dominating too many conversations. Also, in this case, it may be a bit of moving too far ahead for what residents were comfortable with, even though it was probably a smart idea for traffic calming. That's the irony of this for me, and what caught my attention is the traffic calming measures that residents were most irritated by were actually in their best interest as far as keeping the neighborhood safe. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic, a lot of kids out after the schools get out, and these traffic calming measures were designed to intentionally be inconvenient. So people had to slow to almost a stop before making a turn on or off the main drag through that residential area. These are good ideas, but residents hated it. The city has pulled them out at this point. And again, this is not a criticism of any decision made in Nibley and any other city. It's just a good example of the kinds of things that have not been typical problems to deal with in Cache Valley, but are going to be on the regular issues that come up again and again as we deal with growing population and the concentration of traffic that's going to come with that. So we'll talk with the mayor of Nibley City coming up later on this hour and find out really what they heard from residents and what the city plans going forward. Stick around. More of KVNU's For the People right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
We're here with Chuck, founder of Dollar Loan Center. It looks like you have some fancy new locations around Logan and Ogden.
Yes, sir. We're right next to McDonald's on US 89 in Logan and in Ogden on 12th between Lincoln and Washington. We dig this area. But the best part is saving the drive altogether and applying from the comfort of your couch at don'tbebroke.com.
I kind of like stopping by.
Good call, and it's really worth the drive. We've been processing our $5,000 short-term loans over 28 years, and our customers just love doing business with the DLC. In nearly every instance, we're around half the cost of the payday and title lenders.
Dollar Loan Center lends up to $5,000 in minutes. Stop by in Logan, Ogden, or any of our 15 Utah locations to meet our real friendly staff. You can also apply over the phone or online at don'tbebroke.com.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice, and I'm here with Barbara. Barbara, how did you become acquainted with Primrose?
I had been trying to get another company to come and help me, and I had waited about 2 weeks, and I needed a bath. My neighbor suggested that she would make a few phone calls, and that very afternoon, Mark Stokes was sitting in my front room, and he said, "What do you need?"
Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
I'm Jace Allen, founder of Allen Law. My focus has always been helping families protect what matters most through meaningful estate planning. I've now joined forces with attorney mediator Chris Guyman of the Conflict Resolution Center and seasoned litigator Sam Goebel to form the Allies Law Firm. Whether you're planning ahead, resolving marital conflict, or facing a courtroom battle, we bring strategy, strength, and experience together under one roof. Because when it matters most, you deserve the Allies Law Firm. Call the Allies Law Firm today. We plan, we fight, you win.
Aggie basketball is heard here.
You know, there's a pride in this.
KVNU is your station for the best game day coverage. With pregame beginning 1 hour before tip-off, play-by-play and post-game interviews and Aggie call afterwards. It's Aggie basketball on News Talk KVNU 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at kvnutalk.com, and the KVNU mobile app, the heritage home for the Aggies.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. If you listened to the State of the Union here on KVNU last night, you maybe caught a portion of the remarks in about a 90-minute record setting for its length. State of the Union remarks from the president endorsing and urging Republicans with majorities in the House and the Senate to pass Senator Mike Lee's SAVE Act, as it's known. And for those not familiar or who haven't followed this, what has really been kind of a lengthy saga, this was actually introduced more than a year ago by Senator Lee, got no traction, and for whatever reason, politics being unpredictable, I guess, it's gotten a lot of talk lately and some endorsements, mostly from Republicans who are running for re-election in the Senate this year. But it's more than it had in the year plus that it's just kind of been sitting there. So last night, the president said Republicans need to pass Mike Lee's SAVE Act to protect our elections. For those not familiar with the bill, it's complex. Short version is this is a bill that originally was actually written by Senator Ted Cruz. And then Cruz kind of dropped the whole thing, and Senator Mike Lee picked it up. He's changed it quite a bit from Cruz's version, and it's been changed even more in the last couple of weeks, trying to get all the Republicans in the Senate on board. The House has already signaled, Republicans in the House have already signaled that they showed they have the votes to pass this, but the Senate's where the holdup is. And it basically just makes some very strict guardrails for federal elections. Proponents say this is necessary to prevent people who are not legal residents, legal citizens, from voting in federal elections. Critics say this is not a problem, and to be completely honest, they have the data on their side. It's not much of a problem, but there have been attempts, and states catch them, and that's kind of where critics say, okay, the system's working, this bill is unnecessary. Critics also say that this is going to be problematic for people who don't have, a copy of a birth certificate or a passport to register to vote, which this bill would require throughout the country. And the United States, so in other countries where something like this is already done, they also have a federal ID. Here in the U.S., we have Real ID, which is used by some states, not by others. The system was never actually built up to function as its stated design by the federal government, mainly because of Republicans where Senator Mike Lee used to be on this issue, didn't like the idea of a federal system that cataloged and tracked American citizens. Senator Mike Lee, kind of ironically now, is finding himself on the other side of that, a bit of a flip for him. because in order to make the SAVE Act workable, many Republican colleagues of his on the Capitol Hill have said that we would have to really institute a federal ID and tracking system of American citizens, and I'm still against that. Senator Mike Lee has said, one, that it's not necessary to do that. I don't know if I agree with him on that. I think to make this workable, you do have to go there. But regardless, despite the president's endorsement last night, what's interesting about this is the holdup is other Republicans in the Senate. Senator Mike Lee told the Deseret News last week. I had to go find this story again. He said that that the additional support from Republicans has been welcome after last night's remarks by the president in the State of the Union. Lee told the Deseret News in a follow-up Q&A that he was happy to hear it. He said the president's remarks will help generate additional interest and hopefully enthusiasm for the bill. However, he acknowledged that there's a big question on how this is actually going to function, and also how he could actually get it passed. He said, we've got a lot of work to do, but I'm encouraged by a number of things, including the president's remarks last night. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, the top Republican in the Senate, the person who calls the shots, has endorsed the legislation and reiterated his support to reporters after the State of the Union last night. He said, quote, in terms of timing, we can't do it while we're trying to fund the government because you can't pivot back and forth, referring to an ongoing shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security that's now stretching into its 11th day as of today. And Lee was also concerned that the partial shutdown debate that's happening won't be addressed in time for this bill to actually go anywhere. But the actual holdup is this. Under Senate rules, most legislation is subject to the filibuster, that 60-vote threshold, and those requirements that go back to 1917, they do allow for an alternate route known as invoking cloture that allows senators to vote on basically cutting off debate as long as there is 51 votes. But this current rules require 60 votes. And so it's hard to explain this because the words don't make sense. The short and sweet of this is that they would actually have to, it would be easy for Democrats to filibuster this. And the Senate hasn't done an actual talking filibuster, like those old ones that you used to see in movies and sometimes in news clips where someone actually had to talk for days to stop a bill. Now they can just threaten to do it, and that's enough. Senator Lee says a way to pass the SAVE Act is to restore the talking filibuster or do away with the filibuster rules entirely, and that's where he's running into some trouble. So he doesn't have the votes for the SAVE Act amongst even the Republicans, and the bigger issue is that to get around Democratic opposition, they would need to nuke the filibuster, and there are more Republicans opposed to that and Democrats opposed to that on the Hill than not. So I'm not saying the bill isn't going anywhere, but Senator Lee acknowledging, even after the shout-out from the president last night, that this is a long shot. And it is unlikely to happen, at least in this iteration of the Senate, and we'll see if that changes, but there's kind of a little explainer on where the bill is at. Again, Trump implored Republicans last night to pass the SAVE Act, and the reality is just a little more complicated than that. So, but we'll see where it goes. This has to kind of be decided within the next couple of weeks, or it's just going to be taken off the calendar for the year, it being an election year. So we'll see what happens. But Senator Mike Lee says he's not giving up on this one, and he's picked up some additional support. We'll be back on the other side of these headlines, talk with Nibley City Mayor that is really not wanting to relitigate this one, Mayor Larry Jacobsen, and we're not going to do that. But a stretch of road through Nibley that has been controversial for a lot of different reasons and is also at this point a connecting highway of sorts between two other cities, and decisions in those cities can impact the traffic through Nibley City, yet Nibley City has kind of shoulder the burden of all of this. It's an example of what's going to come up again and again and again as Cache Valley grows. And we're going to hear from Mayor Jacobsen what he heard from Nibley residents, what the city plans to do going forward to, adjust to the growth and at the same time keep residents happy. That's coming up after these headlines with KVNU's We'll Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. A 20-year-old man is now facing multiple felony charges, including rape, following the alleged assault of an 18-year-old woman that he met earlier this month on a dating app. Now, Ashton Lee Freeze Thomas appeared in Logan's 1st District Court on Monday. He had been booked into the Cache County Jail back on February 4th on charges including first-degree felony rape, object rape, forcible sodomy, as well as third-degree felony aggravated assault. Now, according to a probable cause affidavit earlier this year, the incident took place January 29th at Thomas's apartment. The woman had told police that she became nauseous and lethargic after smoking an e-cigarette. Now, Thomas had provided her the device. Now, while messaging a friend to come and pick her up, Thomas allegedly pinned her arms, choked her until her vision blurred, and assaulted her. Now, the incident ended when the friend arrived to drive her home. Now, during a police-monitored phone call, Thomas reportedly apologized. Police requested that Thomas be held without bail, citing continued attempts to contact the woman, who has already relocated due to safety concerns. And police are asking for the public's help locating a 31-year-old West Valley City woman who's been missing since mid-February after she reportedly fled the state, saying that she was fearing for her safety. Now, Cheyenne Tuner told her mother back on February 13th that she was traveling to either Las Vegas or Arizona because she believed someone was going to harm her, according to the West Valley City Police Department. Now, the following day, a man answered Tuner's phone and told family members that she was in Arizona. Now, police said that Tuner left with a male companion believed to live in the Phoenix area, although that man returned to Salt Lake City on February 19th. But Tuner has not been seen or heard from ever since. Now, officials describe her lack of communication as being out of character. Investigators are urging anyone that may have information as to her whereabouts to contact police. And finally, Salt Lake City International Airport has been named as the top airport in North America. That according to the 2025 ASQ Global Customer Experience Awards. Now, the airport earned top honors in 3 specific categories, being the best airport in North America when it comes to departures, the most enjoyable airport, and the cleanest airport. Now, the rankings were determined through random passenger surveys that were conducted at departure gates throughout the year, weighing Salt Lake City against more than 400 other participating airports worldwide. Now, Bill Wyatt, executive director of the Salt Lake City Department of Airports, credited the achievement to the collective efforts of airport staff, airlines, and TSA agents. Of course, the award comes as the airport is continuing its multi-phase redevelopment project. Well, this storm has brought us over a quarter inch of rain with snow falling in the mountains, and now the storm is going to move out of the area. It's going to leave us with some clouds overnight tonight. Temperatures are going to drop into the mid-30s. Tomorrow, we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds, temperatures around the mid-50s. That'll continue into Friday, and it looks like another chance of some moisture coming for the weekend. But we'll continue to see these warm temperatures for the first of next week as well. And it's Discount Tire that brings you weather as part of the news here at the bottom of the hour. Winter travel is here, and that's why you need safe, reliable tires. You can get into Discount Tire today to save on your favorite brands and take advantage of their no credit check financing, 12 months, no interest. And, of course, they have a great layaway program as well. It's Discount Tire and Automotive, located in Logan, Providence, and Smithfield. Stop by there today. And I'm Will Feelright for KVNU News.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. 4 people are dead, 6 others injured, according to the Cuba Embassy in the U.S., after a Florida-registered boat entered Cuban waters today, and the people were shot by Cuban authorities after opening fire. Speaking in St. Kitts while on a Caribbean community summit, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. is still trying to verify the information that's coming out of Cuba.
Suffice it to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. It's something, frankly, that hasn't happened with Cuba in a very long time.
Vice President J.D. Vance also says he's been briefed by Rubio on what they know. Iran's shadow fleet now facing new U.S. sanctions. It comes ahead of tomorrow's next round of talks between the U.S. and Iran on a possible nuclear deal. At the same time, the U.S. continues to build up military forces in the Middle East. Another round of snow today in parts of the Northeast as residents and airlines try to recover from this week's major winter storm.
Valentine's Day celebrates love, the flowers, the cards, the gestures, but the most meaningful love is the kind that lasts. You've worked hard for your body, you've shown discipline, and still, some areas never change. That's not failure, that's biology. At Bell Sculpt, we permanently remove stubborn fat cells, not temporarily shrink them. And yes, even love handles deserve a little love. This isn't about changing who you are, it's about finishing what efforts you started. This Valentine's Day, choose yourself. Visit bellsculpt.fm to book your free consultation today.
Bringing Wall Street to Main Street. From your local experts in downtown Logan, this is the Adams Wealth Advisors Market Report.
Hi, this is Brooke with Adams Wealth Advisors. Stocks ended the session with gains on Wednesday as investors awaited NVIDIA's earnings, the centerpiece of the AI investment theme. The company delivered a solid and inspiring outlook about an hour ago, with CEO Jensen Huang giving a bullish quarterly revenue forecast, signaling that the build-out of AI computing remains on track. This development has eased concerns among investors who have been worried about a bubble in AI investments as corporations race to develop their own AI capabilities. The market received the news well, but did not surge significantly after the close. By the time the regular market session ended, most major stock indices had already posted solid returns. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 308 points to 49,482. The Nasdaq gained 1.41% to 25,329, and the S&P 500 rose 0.81% to 6,946. Sectors showed mixed performance. However, with technology and financials being the...
That's your update from Adams Wealth Advisors, guiding your financial future one day at a time. For personalized help planning yours, reach out to us at 435-752-1702. See you soon, Cache Valley. Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
Cache Valley, meet Lily Jarvis Fuller. She's 23 years old from Midway, Utah, earning her master's degree at Utah State University and now representing Team USA at the Spearfishing World Championships in New Zealand. Lily trains year-round, building the strength and focus it takes to compete on the international spearfishing stage, and she needs your help. To help pay for travel expenses, visit freshwaterlily.com. That's freshwaterlily.com and donate today. Any and all donations are truly appreciated. Let's help send Lily to the world stage, representing Utah and Team USA.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. We talk a lot on the show about growth, how the valley is changing as population grows. That brings with it additional challenges, not just in housing and water, but also public safety, how it affects the sheriff's department, even the county jail, a part of the discussion at a recent candidate event for the county attorney's race here in Cache Valley. One thing that interests me, because it's something that is common, old hat even along the Wasatch Front in the Salt Lake County area, but is now, I think, a staple of as well in Cache Valley, is that we're beyond the days when a decision in one city doesn't affect the residents of another. We're beyond the days where roads are just a Logan Road or a Nibley Road or a Providence Road. The intermingling of all of this is going to be an increasingly frequent issue that pops up. And so we reached out to our friends at Nibley City, Mayor Larry Jacobsen joining us here to talk about 1200 West. And Mayor Jacobsen, this has been, how many years has this been a discussion and an ever-evolving and changing stretch of road?
Well, Jason, first, thanks for having me on. This is a great topic for us to talk about, road safety and safety of residents of Nibley and how that affects other towns. And so I think this is a great time to chat about it. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, our pleasure.
And you can call me Larry if that's okay with you. It's your choice.
Absolutely.
All right, great, Jason. So the 1200 West Road is definitely a road of regional significance.
Sure.
I have seen it on the Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization transportation plan for more than 25 years.
Wow.
So it's a road that, with its completion, actually links a corridor, finishes a corridor that goes from Hiram to the Logan Cache Airport, because it connects into 10th West in Logan. Okay, so it's a road of regional significance. We anticipate the transportation master plan for the Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization anticipates 8,000 to 10,000 cars per day.
Wow.
As the valley continues to grow. It's important for a number of reasons. It's transportation in Cache Valley tends to be very one-dimensional, and we all know the frustration of congestion on Main Street in Logan. And
sure.
UDOT's done work to try to relieve that. And the best thing, it seems, studies have shown, the best thing we can do is try to turn a one-dimensional traffic system into a two-dimensional grid. That makes sense, right? We need parallel paths to travel north and south, and also east and west. And so 1200 West, with the connections that I mentioned, in fact, could be, along with 10th West, could be and is planned to be a way to relieve congestion on Main Street in Logan that we all deal with.
You can, as someone who, in my day job, I traverse the valley south to north, sometimes multiple times a day, and I see it working. I mean, it is, you can see a clear, in fact, I can see it in my own schedule. I use these routes. And I'll throw this out right from the start as we discussed 1200 West. I'm a bit biased. I kind of loved what Nibley City did. It controlled the speed of traffic while at the same time allowing, if I was headed from Hiram into Logan, just a continuous drive that was actually a nice drive. But because of the winding of the road, some of these traffic calming measures, the traffic just kind of floated a steady 30 miles an hour through there. I loved it. I thought it was a great.
Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate that observation. And along with this importance to a regional traffic plan, we have residential neighborhoods that are already developed and will continue to develop along 1200 West.
Sure.
And it's a challenge. I probably get 4 to 6 texts or emails from constituents a month that ask, can you do something to slow down traffic in my neighborhood?
Sure. Which is
not only is
that's what the city.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's sort of what the city did here. For listeners who haven't followed this and not intending in any way to reopen the can of worms for debate, but short version, the city instituted some traffic calming measures. Nibley residents didn't like them. It caused many of them felt that they were having to make too wide of turns onto and off of 1200 West. But the goal was to slow and control traffic for residential safety, because this is basically a highway at this point, traffic-wise, that is running through residential areas. Again, without reopening that debate and those can of worms, Larry, it's such a great example of the challenges we're facing. You're going to have residents demanding that the city do something to control traffic, to keep pedestrians safe, to offer bike and pedestrian lanes that are protected, as this road does. But then at the same time, you've got these competing pressures from kind of outside of Nibley to create a direct route that, as you said, connects the airport to the JBS plant in Hiram.
Yep, you're exactly right. And I think there's a way. And we talk about there was some complaint, certainly, let's say some pushback, but it's not unanimous that this was a bad plan. And we probably separate the discussion into two parts. One is the traffic calming built into 1200 West as cars go north and south versus the intersection treatments that the council has made a decision on how to treat the intersections on the crossroads, and how to protect bicyclists and pedestrians on those intersections. So if we stick for a minute with the traffic calming on the north-south flow, Jason, like you talk about, the thing is, the old way of building roads is long and wide and straight, and we would say we did that for safety. But the problem is that people will drive as fast as they feel comfortable.
Sure.
And a wide, long, straight road somehow makes people feel more comfortable than we think is a safe speed for that residential neighborhood. And so we talk about the bends and the curves and frankly, the narrower traffic lanes involved. There's a barrier that separates the vehicle lanes from the bike lanes to protect cyclists. And so, the intent is to make people feel safe and therefore naturally travel at a safe speed on that road instead of trying to enforce a speed limit with pin signs and law enforcement.
Sure. And
we have found that tin signs and law enforcement just don't work.
Sure, they tend to work at first, and then everyone gets comfortable and learns the road. And
they work while the police car is out there on site. Exactly.
That's right. That's to me, it's been fascinating to watch this actually work. And for residents who have never driven the road, it doesn't wind and turn in a way that requires a signal or a complete stop at any point. It's a continuous flow nearly through a roundabout until you get to the one stop sign before a stoplight. But it is a nice drive, but the road winds just enough that you do have to control your speed. And it's fascinating, Larry, to watch this keep people at the posted speed limit. So this is something that works. This is something also that I think it's fair to say we're going to see other cities talking about implementing as they grow. One day, I don't know how many years from now, you'll even see Mendon talking about stuff like this as the valley grows. Do you feel, as mayor of Nibley, and again, back to the idea that Hiram could make a decision tomorrow that completely intensifies the traffic on this road every day. Logan could do the same thing. Providence even could do that and affect traffic on 3200 South. And do we coordinate enough? Are we still kind of in this mindset that every city is this independent island, or do you, Larry, feel that the coordination is happening enough?
That's a great question, Jason. And there are definitely efforts in that direction. Again, the CMPO, if I can use the acronym, Cash Metropolitan Planning Organization. I believe that's a pretty well coordinated effort to create a workable traffic structure for the entire metropolitan part of Cache Valley.
Sure.
And so this road, 12th West, fits into that plan. 12th West in Nibley fits into that plan. To a lesser extent, 8th West in Nibley fits into that plan. And so the CMPO, I think, does a good job of anticipating. And of course, there's computer models and all that stuff to help with the actual technical part of this. But I think does a good job of anticipating, where the congestion is going to be, where the growth is going to be, and coming up with ways to mitigate that. Now, Mike Tyson said everyone has a good plan until you get punched in the face, right? And
sure. Roads and water, right? That's how the saying, right? Anything related to roads and water, you can get yourself in trouble.
So we can have a great plan, but then we have to figure out how to build that plan, how to build out that plan. And Cache Valley, without an interstate, is very underrepresented in terms of, I believe, federal highway money without interstate. I think without trying to be hard on anybody, I think sometimes the Wasatch Front gets a lot more attention on traffic mitigation from the state of Utah, from UDOT and such. But we have another great avenue in Cache Valley. I think it was in 2007, voters approved a 0.25% local option sales tax for traffic mitigation projects. And the mayors of Cache Valley get together in something called the Council of Governments, lots of words here, but to decide what traffic proposals will be the best to mitigate these congestion issues as they come up and as we see them coming.
That's nice to hear. It's pleasant to hear that there is coordination, because it is.
There is.
Again, for listeners out there, this is something that is a bit new to Cache Valley, having to make decisions this way, where increasingly we're going to have, the burden can't always fall on Nibley to create a thoroughfare for residents of all the surrounding cities. Same, the burden can't always fall on Logan City. We're going to have to coordinate more. So it's nice to hear that's happening. And for listeners, again, we're speaking with Nibley City Mayor Larry Jacobsen about 1200 West, but a larger conversation that this road represents about the growth of the valley, coordinating and road planning for public safety. And I hope you'll stick with us. More of our conversation with Mayor Larry Jacobsen right after this.
Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs. If you're having heating trouble and you need your furnace fixed, just pick up the phone and call Gary Riggs. 435-512-6633. We'll come to you. Our service fee is low, just $25. We repair all brands and have certified installers. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs.
Local radio reaches Utahns where they live, work, and drive without subscriptions, algorithms, or paywalls. That reach makes it one of the most trusted and efficient ways for local businesses to connect with local audiences. Weather alerts, high school sports, community news, local radio keeps Cache Valley informed and connected. Cache Valley Media Group. Trusted voices, local focus.
Hey, it's Monica Lopez from Washaway. Just wanted to say a big thank you. Because of you, we're the 2025 Best of Northern Utah Gold winner for Full Service Car Wash. We're honored and proud to be part of this amazing community.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Speaking again with Nibley City Mayor Larry Jacobsen. And Larry, again, I want to thank you for doing this, because we're kind of putting you on the spot here for a conversation that really is for everyone. It's for every resident of the valley. It's for every elected leader of the valley, because we're talking about something that is going to just come up again and again, and that it relates to public safety. It relates to how we all get around. As I've said, I'm a huge fan of what Nibley's done along 1200 West. In fact, I tease my city leaders that you can see exactly when 1200 West turns from a Hiram Road into a Nibley Road. I needle them about that as often as I can, but this is one stretch of road that is an example of what it means for the valley to be growing so fast. So what comes next for Nibley City on this, the whole traffic front?
Well, let me make one quick comment about 12th West as it travels, the full north-south route between Logan and Hiram. It's an interesting case because the part of the road that has the traffic calming in it, we're monitoring speeds on that. We get a lot of speed data, not to issue tickets, but just how fast are cars traveling on roads around Nibley. And we're pleased that this 1200 West, the part of the 1200 West with traffic calming in it, designed as a 35-mile-an-hour road, people are driving 35 miles an hour. The 85th percentile of vehicles is 36, 35, 36, 37 miles per hour. Now, that's a success to me, right? That's people are going the design speed of the road. And we have this great, almost controlled experiment to look at traffic speed south of 3200 South, some of which is in Nibley, by the way. I won't. There's unincorporated. There's Nibley, then there's unincorporated county, and then there's Hiram. But it's a long, straight road. And with similar speed limits, the 85th percentile of drivers are going 10 to 15 miles per hour above the posted speed limit in that part of the road compared to where the road has these traffic calming measures in it. So it's an interesting case to study, I believe, almost a controlled experiment between what do cars do with traffic calming versus what do cars do without traffic calming.
And again, this is something that we've had the luxury of not having to worry about for a good long time. But now this is something that we're going to have to worry about on a regular basis. And I have to say this as well, Larry. I think Nibley City deserves a shout out for being responsive to residents, for trying something new, for being a guinea pig of sorts on some of these traffic calming measures, and those protected pedestrian and bike lanes are important as well. Residents want those. And then also being responsive when residents said, well, we don't like some of this. That's going to be required more and more of every city as well, right?
Yeah, thanks. We spent a lot of time talking about 12th West. We asked for time to, the council asked citizens time, wait till the road is fully open and let's see how it works. And we have made changes based on citizen feedback, especially on intersections. I think so. Nibley City, and so thank you for that compliment to Nibley City. Now that's not on me. That's on the city council. That's on city staff, and that's being committed to things like, as a community, we're committed, citizens as well, to active transportation.
Sure.
And so you still okay with audio? Can you hear me okay?
You bet. We only have about 30 seconds left here, though.
Okay, I'll hurry. So going forward, I think that, about going forward, I think we have to understand that when we benefit one group of users, say cyclists and pedestrians, there may be some compromises to make on vehicles.
Sure.
And we're excited about a federal grant, Federal Highway Administration, where we can do proof of concept kinds of demonstration projects in Nibley, and we can put up temporary traffic calming in other parts of town and say, so that's what it looks